Hi guys, it's me George, and today I am doing a book review. So the book review I am doing is, God, mine went blank there. It's called Backwoods Witchcraft, Conjure and Folk Magic from Appalachia by Jake Richards. And I really enjoyed this book. This book was something that really, the moment I started reading it, it was like boom. I was definitely drawn in. I was very I was just hooked. I couldn't really put it down. I haven't got the actual book with me, so I do apologise. It is actually my flatmate's, and he's reading it because I kind of stole it from him. But I started to flick, and then I was like, and yeah, it was a gem. This book is an absolute delight to read, and it's an absolute gem. I'm going to tell you why for a couple of reasons. So, first and foremost, this book talks about the folk magic and conjure from Appalachia. And I've always wanted to look into Appalachian folk magic or mountain magic a lot more, or like granny magic. I've always wanted to sort of dig a bit deeper and research into that because obviously practicing hoodoo, there are elements of that within conjure and hoodoo, so I wanted to know a bit more, and I wanted to kind of just know more about what it actually is, what it actually, the actual practices of it. There's a really good documentary on YouTube, and I think it's called like Signs, Omens, and Mountain Magic or something like that. But have a look in YouTube. If I can find the link, I will post it in my bio down below, because it was about 45 minutes long, and it was really good. It just went into Appalachian folk magic and practices, and it was so interesting to watch. So definitely give that a go if you're wanting to look more into that practice. So the book itself, one of the things I absolutely loved about the book is it's very practical, very down to earth, and very hands-on. And I think that sometimes when it comes to practices of folk magic, and this is a disclaimer, this is not slating down books that use poetic and evocative language, because some of my favorite books in the world are poetic and evocative. So it's in no way near slating those books down or those authors down. I want to give that disclosure before, because I know people are like, huh? So it's definitely not doing that. But I think that sometimes, and I've seen it with some other books that some other authors that I may not be too keen on, I've seen that the actual folk magic of those books can get very much lost in translation, and you're trying to actually read about a piece of folk magic, and next minute this person's talking about Dame Fate for about 3 hours, and you're like, fuck, wait, what? And things are so flowery, they can get lost in translation. And I hate that. I kind of hate that. I don't really enjoy that. For me, if it's a book on folk magic, the fact that folk magic is very down to earth and very practical. I love the fact that this book, Backwoods Witchcraft, was very practical, very down to earth. And that was something that I actually thoroughly enjoyed. It was something that, yeah, I really enjoyed actually reading this book, because it was so down to earth. It was like, right, for this, you can do this. And the reason why you do this is because of blah, blah, blah. There was a lot of sympathetic magic in it, as there is with folk magic, but I loved it. For instance, one of my favorite pieces of information, he was talking about workings for like a court case. And he was saying for making like powders for court case, or workings of court case to go in your favour, to select the grave from a newborn baby's, to select the dirt, sorry, from a newborn baby's grave, because they've never been convicted of anything, because they've never been guilty, they're innocent. And I love that. I love the sympathetic element of that. So rude. Sorry, fucking motorbike, person with a very small penis on a motorbike just passed through. But yeah, so that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about this book, that there was a lot of sympathetic magic in the book. It was something that I enjoyed, because I think sometimes if you can, people can give like folk magic, and there are books and older books that I've actually read on folk magic. It's like, just do this, this, and this, but I'm always like, well, why? And I'm always asking myself that, why? And for me, this book, Backwoods Witchcraft, really kind of gave that why, and that is something that I really, really enjoyed about the book. So yeah, that was one of the things. The cover art is actually beautiful. The aesthetic of the book, I really, really loved it. And I love the fact that the author, Jake Richards, actually went into the culture of that practice. And I think a lot of the times when it comes to folk magic from different parts and different places, they very seldom go into the actual culture of that place. And I think that's really important, because ultimately it gives you an understanding of the people, an understanding of how they live, where they live, and the book really goes into it. It talks about working with the land, but it talks about it in a very practical way, very hands-on. Like, you'll need a shovel for digging, you'll need this for, and I love that. You know, rather than you need to do this, this, and this, it's like, well, go and spend some time out in nature, physically go for a walk and do this, and you can go foraging, and I love that, because I think to get to bond with the land, I think it's important to actually work within the land, or do some work in the land. And I loved how practical it was, and how down to earth and hands-on that it was. I also love there are comparisons, and he draws, oh, this is from this culture, this is from this culture, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of really enjoyed that, because again, I like to know where things come from. So I think that was something that I really enjoyed, because I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Where does that come from? And he was like, well, it comes from blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, perfect. And I think that's really, really important. I think it's so, so important. I really love seeing and drawing comparisons between different practices, particularly New World practices, compared to Old World practices. So, you know, things like Appalachian folk magic, things like hoodoo, root work, things like Braucura or Dutch Pennsylvanian powwow, and seeing the similarities of that. And I'm like, right, what are the similarities of that and cunning folk practice? And actually seeing the crossover. And I kind of love how in a lot of New World practices, there is kind of this merge, there is kind of this blend. And I kind of love it. It's that kind of crossing over of different cultures kind of coming together in one sort of beautiful ooey gooey melting pot of goodness that, you know, creates very potent folk magic. And yeah, I love that. I think there's something really beautiful in that. So yeah, the other thing that I really enjoyed about the book is his use and reference of the word witchcraft within the book. Despite the fact that he actually mentions, okay, so within Appalachian folk magic, like, to be a witch isn't actually a good thing. It's not a good thing at all. Basically similar to how cunning folk viewed witches. A lot of people have this idea that cunning folk were, you know, also witches, but actually to call a cunning folk or a cunning man or a wise woman a witch wouldn't have been a good thing. It's only until the late 1800s to early 19th century that you kind of see this development and change in the term and word witch. However, you know, you had terms like wayside witch, village witch, or white witch. There were these sort of new terms that would come out, and people started to become a lot more comfortable with that. And I love the fact that the author kind of mentions that, okay, actually the term witch isn't a good thing, but actually still incorporates the term witchcraft, because I'm very much like that with my practice. I practice traditional witchcraft, but also practice British folk magic, which British folk magic is not. You know, historically, British folk magic, to be a witch, when I say British folk magic, I mean like the cunning folk aspect of British folk magic. To be a witch would not have been a good thing. But yeah, I still also incorporate the term witchcraft. I know the differences, but I find it quite nice. There's something about it that I really enjoyed about the book. So I saw similarities there. But yeah, overall, definitely give this book a read. As I said, I wish I had the cover on me, but I stole it from my flatmate earlier when he got it, and I was like flicking through it, and I was like, oh, like really getting into it. But definitely give this book a read, guys, because if you're wanting to know more about Appalachian folk magic, and also the back, there is just literally pages and pages of juice, pure juicy folk magic that says do this for blah 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 and do that because of blah, because it means yada yada yada. And yeah, I loved it. I really enjoyed it. So I hope this video helps, and I hope that you guys enjoy this video. Have a lovely day, and yeah, peace.